Dəqiqə. Okey. Salam hamıya. Bugün biz mən Kənan Mehdizadə, Ağalı Hüseynzadə və Samir Əsgərli dördüncü bizim assignment üçün assignmenti discuss edəcəyik. Birinci başlayaq onda word creationlardan, orada suallardan. Elə videoya mən başladım, elə birinci başlayayım sualları. Bacardığım qədər izah edeyim, sonra siz qalan hissələri izah edərsiniz. Birinci sualda deyir ki, what is default gateway and what is its purpose? A default gateway is a hardware node which ensures connections between different networks. Əsas hardware hissəsidir və connectionlara diqqət yetirir müxtəlif networklar arasında. And it serves as a forwarding point to remote networks. In other words, we can say default gateway is routing system and its main purpose is sending requests to the right destination even if networks use different protocols. And in remote network, when any host sends request to any device, firstly it forwards it to a default gateway. Məncə bu qədər kifayətdir. Yəni Azərbaycan dili izah etməyə usta ehtiyac yoxdur da deyirəm. Amma çünki ingilis dilini araşdırmışıq. Hamısını cümlə və cümlə tərcümə etməyə ehtiyac yoxdur. İkinci sualda how do routers learn about remote networks? Explain the ways that they can learn. Cavab odur ki, iki üsul var. Two ways that router can learn about remote networks. Biri static routingdir and dynamic routing. Static routing...
İkinci sual da bu düzdür, hə?
Hə, ikinci sual. Static routingdə odur ki, by using static routes, we enter manually remote networks into the routing table, and the static router never change until the administrator manually enter and configure. Bu static routing əsasən belə manual routing də deyə bilərik, yəni izahından bilindiyi kimi. Sonra dynamic routingdəki by using dynamic routing protocols, remote routes are automatically learned. Buna nümunələr protocols like RIP and AIGRP and etc. Üçüncü sualımızda explain the difference between static and dynamic routing by listing each one's advantages and disadvantages. Static routingdə advantages kimi deyə bilərik ki, static routing has better security, yaxşı security'si var, and no CPU usage and less memory usage var. Daha bu static routingdə static routingi small networkda tətbiq etmək daha asandır, easy to implement in small networks, and the path which is going to be used by static route is known. Static routingə disadvantage olaraq deyə bilərik ki, manual configuration requires more time. Həmişə manual configure edirik, o da çox vaxt aparır, and the static routing is hard to implement in large networks. Advantage olaraq dynamic routing advantage olaraq deyə bilərik ki, easy to implement in large networks, and link failure doesn't disturb routing, and independent to the network size, and dynamic routing supports more complex algorithms. Disadvantage, dynamic routing disadvantage olaraq deyə bilərik ki, less secure'dur and requires more resources like CPU and memory, and the dynamic routing is more complex in implementation. Sonra dördüncü sualda bizdə deyir ki, what is broadcast domain? Mənim çox sadədir, yəni sadə bir cavab. Broadcast domain is a logical part of any network. In broadcast domain, all the nodes are reachable by broadcasting at the data link layer. And that's all. Ghali, you can continue by discussing the fifth question.
Okay. 5-ci sualdan başlayalım da. Okay.
Right.
Burada deyir ki, what's the meaning of the 0 and 0, 0, 0 in the routing table? It means a default route. Yani, if destination address is not correct according to routing table, then the router sends the package to the default route. 6-cı sualda deyir bizə ki, explain the difference between serial Ethernet, fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet and 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. Explain purpose of serial versus all others. The purpose of serial is connecting routers to remote networks. If two serial ports must communicate each other, they should synchronize appropriate clock frequency and proper bandwidth. Then we can say that Ethernet is mostly used in local area networks and metropolitan area networks, and it has bandwidth up to 10 megabits. Then we can say fast Ethernet is based on Ethernet and has bandwidth up to 100 megabits. And then we can say 10 gigabit Ethernet has bandwidth up to 10,000 megabits, which is too fast for today's world. And 7th question, what is next hop? Next hop is that it is an IP address entry in the table, which is it shows the next destination where the packets will be forwarded. Samir, you can continue on the 8th question.
The 8 questions. Which checks the routers do when they receive packets? First, if the destination address is in the routing table, then forward the packet to 3. Secondly, if the destination address is not in the routing table, then forward it to the default route. And the third and the last one, drop the packet. In the next question, they were asking, explain the difference between RAM and flash memory. RAM stores operational information, and RAM is valid, but others are non-volatile. Then new RAM is just a non-volatile version of the RAM. ROM stores the router's bootstrap, startup program, operating system, software, and etc. Flash memory is just erasable and reprogrammable ROM. In the last question, they were asking if we reboot the router, will the static routes and dynamic routes be deleted? Explain your answer. If the running configuration is saved, they will be the same after the reboot. However, if it's not saved, they will be deleted. Bitti.
Okay, bitirdik də bütün sualları.
Pardon.
Yəni, hər şey aydındır, əvvəlcədən diskas eləmişdik. Nəsə yenə belə başqa bir şey varsa danışa bilərik də bu mövzuda. Yoxdursa, ikinci parta keçək. Packet tracer faylları.
Onda
Onda biz bu partı finish edək.